We're having a day off the hulls, the boys, Sam, Zach and I. We're up at Sam's new house in the Gong. And for those of you that don't know where the Gong is, well, where's the Gong?
It's about an hour and a half south of Sydney.
Or more importantly, an hour north of Jervis Bay.
Yeah,
so he's moved an hour closer to us, which is really nice.
For things like this, it's great. So.
And the story is that this house he bought sight unseen when he was in Canada. Sent me to do the house inspection and then went and bought it. And I've been worried ever since, but it's turned out a good one, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been awesome.
Yeah.
So we're fitting a gate today for our new dog that we're getting
so
next week.
There's a grand dog arriving next week, a golden retriever. So I'm secretly in love already, and she's beautiful. But Zach and I are here, and we brought Zach up because Zach's moved to Hobart, Tasmania, on the other side of the planet, may as well be, next Saturday with Ellen. And it'll be Sam and I will be the only boardmans on the continent.
So we've spent the morning at Bunnings, as everyone does on a Saturday.
Yep.
And
check out Zach and Sam and I have been going hard down here.
missed all the fun bit of us designing it, but
Yeah, we're having a bit of a swear, weren't we? Come on, Zach. Reveal it.
Pretty good.
Dog gate. Love that. Show us how it works, mate. Come on.
completely missed the actual doing of the job. But
That's all right. That's what we want. Yeah, look at that. That's going to be absolutely spot on. We've got another big gate down at the end of the driveway down there, but that's just perfect. Now I reckon you need to buy some lunch.
what was the? I think the only challenge we had was getting Zyner bolts in. So
Oh, Sam's going to reveal my poor workmanship
you
here.
have to. So the driveway's not flat, but we got 3 of the 4 dyno bolts. We're gonna just angle grind out the.
I'll have to get some black spray paint.
Yeah, so we angle grinded it out, but we can't get that 3rd bolt. So
Yeah. My father had to modify even an IKEA coffee table to make it put together. I had to modify it a little bit, just took the angle grinder to it, so it worked out pretty well. I'm pretty impressed, boys.
very happy.
Good effort. What's the next job? Sam said, while you're here, why don't we sand the deck? Look at the size of it. That's massive.
How long would it take to sand it? I reckon we'll get it done.
Smash it out in a couple of hours. And Lexi doesn't look too impressed. She's come up for the day. But this deck here has to be totally sanded this afternoon and re-oiled. It's good fun being a dad. Get to come up and help him finally on his own home, which is really nice. Let's have some lunch, boys. Anything for content these days. What a job. What a job.
5 hours.
5 hours of bloody hand sanding. Used the slave labour and could have got a bloody drum sander for less than $60 for 5 hours. I mean, we would have knocked it over in 20 minutes. Clearing it?
Yeah.
Cool.
It's probably the worst.
I'd just like to explain that there's collectively 18 hours of sanding has been done today.
The 2nd boat.
How do we calculate 18 hours of sanding, Zach?
Well, each of us have spent 6 hours.
With an orbital. We had an orbital each.
Until there was more deck on us than there was on the deck.
At one point, Zach had an orbital on his foot and on his hand. I think he did really well. Righto?
Like that, and it was like black smoke.
Yeah, we didn't have masks on. It was pretty silly. We went up to Sam's yesterday in Wollongong, about an hour north of here, and Zach and Sam and I spent 6 hours sanding his deck with poxy little 100mm orbital sanders. Now, we could easily have just gone and hired a big orbital sander like 20 inches wide, but we didn't, and yeah, I'll never do that again. But today I've come in and just done 6 hours of sanding with a poxy little 150mm pneumatic sander, and what I've actually sanded down is the gel coat that Janet and I sprayed on Friday. Now, looking here, you can see our bows are all beautiful and fair. Our bow ends are sanded down and looking pretty nice. There's always going to be a little bit of a seam line there. Along the bow here is completely done. my longeron, I guess you'd call it, or my bow sprit, and then up here onto the other side. I'm so happy with how this has come up. Got a little bit of snow blindness. My respirator just let a lot of this shit come in, and my eyes were just wow. And my powered respirator is not functioning at the moment, so I'm using a half mask, and my full face mask is just about wrecked. I think I'm going to have to purchase another one for future work that I'll be doing here at the factory once the boat's finished. But anyway, we'll go and have a look down the front and see how it worked out. And then have a look down here on a very dark and dreary day. It's as wet as in the mud and shit. Just trying to get this done, but you can see here I basically sanded this whole bow down along the side here and along the bow forebeam. And the other thing I did is I got in and gave this yet another sand on these nacelles to get these integrated into the hull, and they're looking really good. A very light spray with some flow coat's going to finish them off. I'm so happy to have them done. A couple of little wear through areas, but once it's sprayed, that's going to be it. There's going to be no more of that hoo-ha. But you can see here also I had a bit of a patch of gel coat here that I have to repair, but it's come up pretty well. It's not looking too bad. One more spray up, another half an hour of spraying, and I'll be done. And looking over here on the starboard bow, you know, it's looking pretty good. There is a faint line down here, and I actually wanted to keep this line, but yeah, I think I'm not real happy with it. But at the point where this is waterline about here, so you know, I might just have to live with it and live with the fact that this is under the water. Alright, we've been busily getting our engines ready with our exhaust systems and water cooling systems. We're not going to fit the through hole yet because we're just going to run some water straight into the strainer. But one of the things that I thought the other day was our engines are about 3 years old, so we need to check the impeller, the integrity of the impeller, because if it's been sat there, invariably they can perish even if they're just sitting in storage, and a good idea to pull it off. I've already done the port side and it was dry, but it certainly wasn't perished, so it's okay. So we've lubed that one up. And down in the starboard side here, what I was just saying to Janet was a moment ago, I had a socket to fit the impeller screws or the housing screws on the port side engine, and I brought it over here, and guess what? Same engine model, different size bolts. Just does my head in, that sort of stuff. Or they just can't get consistency. It's like someone just grabbed whatever screws are available and whatever bolts are available to do this up. But so we're checking the integrity of the impeller, and I just thought while I'm here I'll show Janet how to pull it out, because I didn't actually think I had the tool to remove the impeller. But it has a cover plate on it, which has just got 4 screws in it, so nice and simple. These are dead simple, and this is the water pump effectively. So if you want to drain the water out of the engine, you'd actually put a bucket under this and just remove this cover plate, and you'd be able to drain your water pump. Okay, so this is the cover plate, and see this mark here? This is where the impeller operates here. So that's the shape of the housing, and the fins, as you can see the marks on here, they've actually they bend here so that it grabs the water and flicks it through. So that's a pretty simple explanation as to how it works. I'll just show you exactly what they look like. This is the Yanmar one, and these are super expensive, these impellers, but that's what it looks like. Okay, so see that, John?
That's it.
You see how the bottom ones are out of shape? Now you could easily pull this out and find a broken off fin, and better, because this engine hasn't been turned over, that we remove these now and check them, because a broken size fin or a broken fin means it's gone into the engine and ends up in the heat exchanger, and we don't want that. So the removal tool is this thing. All it is a simple bolt. You tighten this one against the housing, and then you tighten this one up, and it actually pulls the whole thing out. Neat as. It's very simple. So this just gets screwed on. So good for Janet and I to do this together, because that way if ever I'm incapacitated or Janet's out on the boat without me, she has a water problem, Righto, so that goes in like that. Just get your spanner, wrench. So we just pull this, and if you just watch how it pulls, it actually physically pulls the impeller out.
Oh, that's clever.
And that's it. So to inspect the impeller, you've got to make sure that there's no perforation in it. I mean, I'm going to buy some spares because that's a 5-minute job to replace if you've got the right tools. But you can see here there's no wear and tear on it, and it's not been lubricated. So clearly you need to lubricate this before you put it back in again. Now each of these fins should look like that, but the ones that go through the cam are these ones here. So it comes through and that actually grabs the water and pumps it through. So this is spinning obviously at a rate of knots, pumps the water through that ovalized section on the impeller itself. So you've also got an O-ring down here. You need to ensure it doesn't leak. So this O-ring here needs to be lubed as well as the actual impeller itself, and then we can put it back in. It only needs to be lubricated until such time as we turn the motors over, but because it's going to be another few months before we launch, we're going to have to lube them again. And of course we just dropped one of the hose clamps under the engine, but we just proved we can actually reach it. Janet can't, but I can sort of get it. And so I've got our final water intake hose into our strainer here. And obviously I'm double clamping everything because I'm paranoid. And the other thing I put in the other day is our, this is our fuel filter here, which has actually got an electronic alarm which goes up to the helm. But so this is here is our pre-fill filter. And there's a pump on here, so to prime it, we have to pump this 60 times.
You got no fuel in, so don't prime it.
No, the fuel comes in, goes out, and goes down into here, into the intake, into the second filter, which is a 2 micron on the engine. And then this one here is the return back to the tank. So any fuel the engine doesn't use will flow back into the tank and get reused later on. But this pump here pumps the fuel out of the tank, primes the whole system so that when you start it, you don't have an airlock in it. And there's a bleed on the top of it. So I'm actually thinking I'm going to move this. I'm not going to know where it is. Down here. All right. That's it. Oh, I'm going out. I'm doing a good job in here, so I don't have to get in here very often. And this is a big engine room. God, obviously if we had a small one. Right, done. Just came out for a sneaky quality control inspection and checking out the fairing, and I think she's done a pretty nice job here. We're doing all the hatch restoring, and she's got these nice and fair, which is good. Cool. Oh, here she comes. I'm doing a quality inspection.
What, about the mess of my hair or about the actual
You're looking a bit windswept, honey.
Oh, what about a mask?
Better. Look at that.
It's better. They're good.
No, they look pretty good. I think they're pretty
Feels
nice.
pretty good.
There's a little bit of a depression there, but I think it'll fill with the gel coat when you spray it.
You
So that's,
reckon?
yep, that's great. No, I think
Put some more in.
we'll get them ready just tomorrow or whenever. We'll just get some white flow coat on the top and then on the bottom, and then we can just sand them down and do a whole spray up on them. You reckon? Oh, bit tired.
Sorry.
It's after 6 o'clock, so I've had enough. So I've been head down in the engine rooms for like 2 weeks, and I'm over it. I'm over it. All right, let's go home. Sunday morning, and we're able to get some jobs done, and Janet's arrived. She's come up for the day, up here sanding the back hatches for us. We'll go and check out how she's going with it. Meanwhile, out in the sun, this. Oh, I like seeing this. Cool. These are going to look unreal when they're all sprayed up. So this is the final sand before a big spray up, and then we'll sand them again. Alright, while Janet's sanding away out the back there, I'm actually installing the fuel and the coolant line here on our starboard side engine. Now, the coolant reservoir has a reasonably long hose, obviously attached here to the heat exchanger or the coolant reservoir, and the fuel filter, which I actually originally installed up on the wall there, I'm actually going to put it down low here so I can just lean in and use it and prime it and bleed it as needed. And basically that will run straight into the secondary, or the prime. This is the primary on the engine, but it will now be the secondary because I have a primary there which is at 10 microns, and then we go down to 2 here as we enter the engine. We've got the intake here, and then this is the return back to the fuel line. Very, very important. So I'm trying to keep this all neat. I've actually set up the other side already. So what I'm trying to avoid here is didn't want to have a coolant line running across this void here in case anything fell on it. As I'm getting in and out, I could fall on it. I don't want to disturb the coolant line, so I've tucked it away here over in a place where there's a lot of other stuff going on, which tends to make a lot of sense because it tends to protect, everything seems to protect itself in this one little corner here. Now I'm going to get onto the fuel line here. Alright, so I've removed my pre-fuel filter and pump from that upper area where I had it on that mount up there. I've moved it down beside the engine so that everything is nice and neat to shorten my fuel runs. About 15 feet of fuel line here, of which one is going to be a return and one will be a feed. Now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to cut it in half so that I can test fire the engines over the next few days. We intend to turn them over, and we're just going to run it into a jerry can. So we've got an intake and a return into a jerry can, and then I can worry about the plumbing later on. So I'm not that worried about using a bit of extra fuel on. I've got a lot of this laying around. I get set up so that we can just simply feed some fuel into the system and tick them over. Right, so the fluid's going to come into the pump this way, back out here into the engine and then into the return. So I need to attach my fuel line from the tank to this fitting. So we've got the intake here, so we need to remove this seal. And install the line from the pump into here, and then the return will go here and back to our tank. Right, now we've got our lounge suite in it's time to cover it up. We were going to put it up in the factory, but we've got some mice up there and I'm paranoid that they're going to eat into them. So I think the best thing is we've got a pretty pest-free environment in here, apart from me. And so I've given... So Janet made the suggestion we cover it in plastic, so we're going to do that. We'll just cover them over in plastic, and that way keep the dust out of them.
What was that? You've given me the job.
I was going to say I've given you the job, but I corrected myself, and I'll just edit that bit out. But sorry, Janet made the suggestion that we cover them in plastic, and so she's going to cover each component.
It's a good one.
Oh, it's a good save. I'm good at saving myself sometimes. Other times I'm not. Start working on cutting out this door larger and then modifying this template slightly, and then we can start putting in some veneers, some Laminex veneers. But for now I don't want to cover these things with dust, and I've also got a bit of sanding to do outside there to fit that last window and this head here, so I figure we're better off to protect it as it is, just with some plastic sheeting, and then hopefully we don't spill anything or drop anything on them. You know what that means? That means I can come in and lay down for a little while when I need a rest. Jan said she's not that impressed with the idea of me having a rest, so she's covered it in plastic so I can at least come in and sit down now. I haven't even had a sit on it yet, to be honest, probably for about 2 seconds one day when I was clean up here. But yeah, at least I've got it protected now. I don't have to worry too much about it getting dust and spray and spilling stuff on it, or hopefully dropping anything on it. But yeah, it looks pretty good. Been working hard, honey.
Pretty hot.
Yeah, it's hot out there, isn't it? Ooh, it's in the 30s today. I don't know. Oh, these are looking good. Yeah, starting to.
Feel a bit better.
Oh, they're almost ready for spray, aren't they? We've got any little, got one little spot there. Perfect, aren't they?
But you always find the one little spot.
That's what this is about. It's got to be perfect. There has to
Yeah,
be.
but you say those little spots, when I tell you about them, you go, oh, we'll just fill them with your cook.
So this one here, I've got to add a little bit of material just on the corner.
Because I figured that one, you're going to take it down so
Yeah,
much.
yeah. I don't think I'm going to worry about
just-
adding anything on this one. I think that's.
You
gonna
should have
be fine.
filled that better.
I'll fill it. I'll fill it. They look good. Show us how they work. Yeah, that's cool. I don't know. I've got a bit of sanding to do on the boat itself, but yeah, that's brilliant.